Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hacking with Friends. Today, we are fully live, so there may be mistakes. We'll be able to answer your questions. Some weird stuff might happen. And I have my friend and co-host Killian here, who is going to be showing off something really, really cool. Killian, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Cody, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be fully live here, so anything can happen.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about something that we've covered a little bit on the stream before, but instead of the kind of mediocre ransomware that I wrote as a proof of concept in the demo to show how it works, we're going to be working with the heavy stuff today. We're actually going to be using ransomware. This is the kind of ransomware you would actually see out in the wild, and we're going to see a little bit about its behavior, how it works, and then how companies are actually able to stop this kind of attack, because this can be really devastating. And in fact, it's kind of topical right now. I was reading in the news that a lot of people are saying that one of the first confirmed fatalities of a cyber attack was a German woman who was being rushed to a hospital. The hospital had been attacked by ransomware. They had to reroute her, and she ended up dying before she was able to get to the other hospital. Now, whether or not she would have made it, like had she been admitted to the hospital, there's probably a much better chance. But it's pretty amazing that there's actually real stories now of casualties from ransomware attacks. So this is a really big deal, and yeah, it's definitely something people are talking about.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I read that too, and I just, it blows my mind. It's unconscionable. You shouldn't be doing this anyway, but affecting people's lives like that, it's not a game. But we talk about it so much.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah, and I think one of the, oh, by the way, let's say hi to our people that are in the chat. We have Ivor Dugos, Michael, John, Knight King, and then Rui from Lisbon, Portugal. Hey, everyone. But yeah, so one of the first things that I kind of like really had stick with me with ransomware was I think it was the BART system in San Francisco was shut down because it got hit with a ransomware attack. But it was a criminal who had basically bought this program off the internet, set it loose, expecting to get some like mid-level company who might pay ransom, and instead got one of the largest transportation networks in the United States for like public transportation, and they caused a huge problem. And they got so scared they ran away because they didn't mean to take out the entire public transportation system for the Bay Area. Like they just meant to do some sketchy stuff, make some money for cheap. So it actually complicated the problem because like suddenly this guy was not contactable and he wasn't going to go over the key because he thought he was going to go to prison forever. So like what's crazy about ransomware is sometimes it's the primary people that are using it that are, have a target in mind and they're going after, a particular place. And sometimes it's just some guy who bought a malicious program off the internet and is trying to make a quick buck. And there is a whole economy with ransomware where people will buy it, use it. And if your computer just happens to be vulnerable and online at the time to this ransomware, and it's using like an exploit for something that hasn't been patched very well yet, then your organization could be the one that falls victim to it, regardless of whether or not it's something that was targeted. So sometimes it's just the unfortunate business of running a box that hasn't been updated for a while, or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, that just gets you hit with ransomware because sometimes people just want to make quick money, and these things they can come kind of pre-set up. So you just connect them to the internet, they run, they find vulnerable machines, and boom, like you have victims. You don't even need to know how to code.
Yeah, for sure. Today's one we're going to talk about actually was developed by our security researchers here. Well, the program that we're working through, they kind of crafted the system, and they actually got, I believe, a real copy of Maze, and they architected it a little bit to make it not like as dangerous as it really is. But it's going to be kind of showing a real detonation of what Maze ransomware attack would look like. And in this case, this is very much a replication of the spear phishing attack, of the Canada Post spear phishing that was executed in the wild. So this is kind of our spin on that, but we're going to go through that path. So again, this is the completely other side of the coin, is people targeting specific organizations for this, kind of going after them, crafting that real good email, not the, all your base are belong to us, broken English type of ones. This is going to look like a real one.
Right.
So pretty cool stuff here with our, of course, little spin on it.
Yeah, and I will say also there's a big jump between like what, the broken English, like, we are sorry, I am poor and I must encrypt your files. Please send me 2 Bitcoin have a blessed day. Like that's like one level of ransomware where like you talk to a guy, it's like the key is still on the computer. Like you don't have to pay anyone. And then there's the level of ransomware where, you know, this is stuff that is like really professional. There's no way to get the files back. And this is where even really big corporations, police departments, like hospitals, like places you would kind of assume would have some way of dealing with this. Sometimes they have to pay the ransom, or they, you know, they don't know what else to do because they cannot function. You know, a hospital can't give medication to a patient if they don't know whether or not they're allergic to it, you know, things like that. So there's really critical things that can be hit by these sorts of stuff. And we're going to be talking about the higher end now, because we've definitely covered the script kiddie stuff on our previous broadcasts. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this. The Maze ransomware I've heard about in the news has a lot of advanced capabilities. So it's going to be cool to take a look at what it looks like. And I'm really, really happy that it's not going off on my computer. So thank you, Killian, for having a box to do this on today.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. What I have running right now is Kali Linux. A lot of folks on this, and I know you are familiar with this. Just set up right now. I have a listener going on the network.
Sorry. There we go.
No, it's all good.
Cool.
So we have my Kali Linux up here. The listener is listening on the network right now for a connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to another box. We're going to do this a little bit differently. This is not going to be exactly how the attacker would see it. But for the sake of making an exciting presentation here, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So here I am, you know, Johnny user logged into my Outlook. I get my notification from Canada Post that the package that I was expecting or not expecting, this is weird. I didn't know I was getting a package here, but apparently it's been, there's a problem.
Oh no. You're potentially free stuff you weren't expecting. Oh no.
I love free stuff.
Yeah.
You know. So I better figure out what's going on here. And this looks like a real legitimate one. This is what real Canada Post notification looks like. So yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and grab this guy here and click on my link. Hopefully my link worked. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so it downloaded. Okay, you know, no big deal. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Package invoice. Okay, well, let's see what I'm getting. Let's see what my free stuff is. Gonna open up Word. Cancel that. Okay. Well, this looks pretty legit. You know, this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and enable that because I want to take a look at what's going on here. There we go. Now I can see the whole thing. Free stuff, I guess.
All right, so I've seen this before. I've definitely gotten an invoice shipped to me that when you try to open, it's like, oh, you need to enable macros. Please enable macros. You can't see the bottom of it. And a lot of the time when you get something like this, it'll actually say like unable to display, like please, you know, like whatever to do something to see it. And this could be like, I think for SANS it was like a bonus notification about getting a bonus. It's always like a package or a bonus or something that you want to see what's in there. When I got it, again, it was an invoice, like a bogus invoice I wasn't expecting. So it's like, what the heck is this? So I got all in there like trying to figure out like, you know, like if I owed somebody money. But the trick of enabling macros, like you just did, like presenting a message where it's just like, I can't see all of this, but it looks really important. Like, I guess I have to click this button because my software hasn't been updated, or this was made on an old piece of software. That's a classic, and I love it.
Yep. It's a classic for a reason because it still works. So I'll go ahead and minimize this. Well, that's weird. You didn't kind of really see anything good. Nothing's really going on here. Okay. Well, you know, that's weird. I guess I'll figure that out later. I got other work to do.
Package. This is getting confusing. Yeah, I'll circle back later. And
yeah.
The thing that a lot of people don't realize is, you know, I'll show an exploit like this sometimes, and people will be like, well, you know, aren't they going to be suspicious if, like, you know, you tell them they're going to get a free thing and they don't get a free thing? People get bait and switched all the time, like especially via email. So, you know, if a document doesn't load, if something isn't displaying properly, 9 times out of 10 people are going to be like, what terrible customer service. And like, rather than calling the IT department, they're going to be like, your website doesn't even work. I can't pick up my package. And it, you know, it's genuinely confusing to a layperson to throw something like this. And security researchers are sometimes a little hard on themselves with just like, is this bait going to work? I was like, no. I mean, if it doesn't open the first time, people just move on with their day. They don't like write down like at 11:30, I opened a file and it did not fully open. Suspicious? ? And then like hand it off to someone, like, you know. So it can be something just like that that causes somebody
Right.
to be breached.
Well, you know what? This Canada Post thing didn't open right. I'm not going to send my suspicious handwritten letter to them to complain about my thing not opening via Canada Post. This is absurd. So anyway, going about my day. Okay, no big deal. Let's go ahead and pop over here. Uh-oh, here we go. So started a reverse handler. Here we go.
So what is a reverse handler for people that don't know what that is?
So I had so it was just listening on my side. So when I executed that script, what it did is call backed out. So it says, hey, I know that I need to communicate with this other thing. So it's going backwards the other direction.
So rather than opening a backdoor on the computer, you had the computer call the door you set up already.
Yep, exactly. So I think that started. Let me check my session. I should have connected to it. Oh, I didn't open my session. Interesting. I wonder if the let's try that again. Because that would be bad. Kind of ruins the live stream if my my thing doesn't open, doesn't it?
That's why it's live. Yeah, of course. And every single time we try to do something that is technical, it's gonna get a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I already opened my script, so let's see it again. Oh, it didn't connect.
It hates it.
It does hate it.
So again, the goal here is, can we get somebody who is just getting a link in the email to click on it and hopefully using an exploit, using macros or some other way of getting the MS Word program or whatever is opening it to actually call back and start a session so we can look around on the computer and start doing stuff. But yeah, if it doesn't work, then that's going to hang things up a bit.
Yeah, let's try that again. So I still have my session open. I could restart my other machine here too.
Cool.
If I wanted to. Actually, let me go ahead and do that. I'll close this Kali session and start it again. See, this is why live is interesting. Oh, I should have just shut it down.
It's just like, hey, I've been waiting for you.
Right. Well, let's try my terminal session again.
Cool.
That should be it. Connect. Where's my mouse? Oops.
Yeah,
the mouse kept getting captured. There we go.
Cool.
Trying this again.
Oh, and just a reminder, while we're setting this up and stuff, we are fully live today. So if you are in the chat and you have a question about ransomware or really anything, feel free to ask it because we've got time to answer today.
We do. Let's try this once more.
All right, we get the email. We open the
email. Yep.
We open the file.
Okay. It's also possible that we're using Google for this. They might be stripping it out on the download now.
Also, I have a question from a chat. What are we running for virtual machines? Are we doing this on AWS? Are we doing it on VirtualBox?
So these, I believe our environment is a closed lab in Azure. So we're not doing this, on like public stuff.
So there's your answer, Azure.
But anyone works if you build it.
Cool. Second question is, are you trying to set up a script where the user accidentally clicks the malicious link? No, we're setting up a script where the user on purpose clicks the malicious link. But yeah, basically that's what we're doing. Oh my God, we got a session. Shells? Do we have?
There we go.
All right, we got shells.
Yes. Okay. It just took a second. Hooray!
Sweet.
All right.
Sweet. All right. So we've successfully managed to connect back. We've established reverse shell, or reverse session. Sorry.
Yep.
So what's next?
Cool. So I decided to interact with the session. So I want to have an interaction here. What I'm going to do now is, so since I had this connection, I can kind of do whatever I want. I can upload things. I can execute commands. So the first thing I want to do is upload some attack tools that I have.
So at this point, you're bringing some tooling onto the machine.
Yep.
So you're not just relying with the stuff that's already there.
Right.
Oh, we actually have a question as well. Well, we have several questions. Question regarding malicious scripts. It's my understanding if you bake a macro into a .doc, it will work, but .docx has more security where you specifically allow it. That's half a question, half a statement. I am actually not totally aware of the difference between a .doc or a .docx because I don't do a lot of Windows exploits, but I do know that the macro thing is like the most popular way of getting somebody to do bad stuff on a Windows computer. It's a classic exploit that's been around forever. Right. So there's just various ways of getting people to click the thing.
The .doc is, I think, typically associated with older versions of Word. .docx, I think, is the newer one. So it's backwards compatible. So I think you can use either. But don't take that as gospel this time. Cool. So anyway, I've uploaded my tools here. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to try and get system, get some elevated rights here. There we go. Okay, got system. So now I've got control. That was pretty easy.
And this might come about in a system that either hasn't been updated in a long time or is using default credentials or something like that, right? Because hopefully it would be a little bit harder to escalate privileges on a box that's like fully patched, updated, and is like, got an IT person in there somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kali is pretty darn good and has a lot of this stuff built in, and Metasploit has a lot of this stuff built in. But there are plenty of ways that you can do this otherwise. But for the sake of the argument, with enough time and enough motivation, the attacker is going to get what he wants anyway. So in this case, this was a fairly easy target for him. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute that. So I've uploaded my my tools here, my bat file. Oops. My keyboard is so close in front of me. I have like little T-Rex arms going on.
And not to distract you, but there was one other question. I'm not sure I totally understand this one, but it was just, can you take a look at the macro on your Win machine to test the strip? I don't know what the strip is. The script? The script, probably the script. Okay, but the script's working now, so maybe we'll take a peep at it later.
Yep. So in this case, typically, if I was a real attacker, what I would see is I would open this as I could open this as an interactive session, have it pipe back across this. But I'm doing this. You're never going to see this. Well, if you saw this on an end user machine, you'd be doing a bad job because the end user would see this. But for the sake of this demonstration, we're going to show you what's happening in this window. And I can probably make this a little bit bigger, I think. Hopefully I can, so everybody can see it. Wow. Is that too small, Kody? Can you see that?
That is very small.
I
replied all brokenly in the chat to the question, by the way. No, we did not write this ransomware ourselves. This is ransomware, which has been like, like when they like make a vaccine by like making a virus less dangerous. That's what we did to it.
Yeah. So it won't let me resize this window. And there's going to be a couple pop-ups. So hopefully everyone can see what's happening now. The first step is, now that I've gotten on that machine, I'm going to do some recon on the network. And what we're doing is basically DNS lookups, or reverse lookups, I should say. So for each one of these subnets here, what we've done is queried DNS and said, hey, who's out here? Is there anybody associated with these IP addresses? So what we have here is, for our subnets, we've resolved a couple different machines. So we have looks like a DC, a couple desktops, a file server, Hyper-V, a couple other things. So it's looked at 1,500 and some change IP addresses. Queried DNS, said, hey, what's out here? And DNS is exactly what it does. Translates the name to the IP address and back and forth. So this is a really simple way to do recon, to learn about what else is on the network here. Just ask, and that's exactly what DNS does. So now that we've found a couple things here, maybe a potential couple targets to attack or to move laterally to, things like that. So now I have a better lay of the land and understand what's going on. So I'm going to continue on with my attack. So now that I kind of have some things that I might want to target, I'm just going to do a real basic password spray. Just throw some usernames and passwords here, see if I get anything. And I know, Kody, that you've done a couple demonstrations like this too.
Yep. So there's two different types of attacks you can do here. You can do online attacks or offline attacks. Offline attacks would be something like grabbing a system hash or finding a hash that is just easily accessible, which I think we've done before, and then brute forcing it using the processing power of the computer. An online hash would be finding a system account or something, and without the hash, just basically brute forcing it online and trying a whole bunch of logins with default or very likely passwords. And that's also a very effective way of being able to do this, although it's substantially noisier because you're actually, the system's aware of every time you're trying to log in. So it can cause a little bit more noise on a system that's monitored and could get you caught.
Yeah, for sure. And this was just that noisy attack here. So try the various usernames and various passwords here. In this case, it was complete. Nothing worked. None of these were successful here. So we have to move on to a different tactic at this point.
And of course, this could be something as simple as, people have set up networking equipment and they haven't changed any of the default credentials or anything like that. That would cause a successful attack for just kind of a brute forcing password spray. And it's the reason why, a hacker might want to try this, because it only takes a couple seconds. And if you're not worried about being detected, then you can really get a great benefit from it.
Absolutely. So the next thing we're going to move on to is a ticket harvesting attack. So we didn't get any luck with that first attempt, that real basic one, just throwing spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks. So we're going to move on. So what we're going to do now is this is pretty common. So in the AD world, and I know Kody and I have talked about this before, to interact with things and to interact with services, that information gets put into Active Directory. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at Active Directory, and this is completely basic, out of the box. This is expected normal behavior. What I want to do is I want to see if there's any accounts in there that are running a service or have a service principal name associated with them. So again, you can do this very easily. This is not hacking. This is not anything tricky. This is basic how Active Directory works functionality. So what I've done is I've listed any accounts in here. Said, hey, Active Directory, tell me any accounts in here that have a service principal name that are associated with running a service here. So here's my list. A couple different things. We got Exchange, some SharePoint stuff. We got what else do we got in there? Backup service, SQL service, file services. So all stuff that we'd expect to see. So what we're going to do now is with this list, we're going to ask Active Directory, hey, I would like to interact with these services. And that, again, completely normal functionality. When you log on, you get your ticket. You can use your ticket to request service tickets, basically. Say, hey, I would like to interact with this. But in this case, we're going to be a little bit tricky. I'll go ahead and do this. So what it's doing is saying, hey, please, I would like to interact with your service here. Can you send me a ticket? And we're using Mimikatz for this too. So in this case, we're saying, or we're pretending that we're an old system, we can't support modern encryption standards. So please downgrade the encryption used on the ticket to something that we can work with, because we're an old system. And basically what's happening is we've grabbed these tickets now that it's replied with to access the service. And this is an unfortunate byproduct of so much backwards compatibility is that with these tickets, especially if you can't use modern encryption, they become encrypted with basically the NTLM password, or I think it's an RC4 hash. So what we can do now, or what we'll do in a second, is try to crack those offline. But I want to make sure that I target the accounts that are going to net me the benefit. I want to be a domain admin. I'm tired of messing around with local systems here. I want to go right for the top.
So I also wanted to mention that the kind of attack that we're doing right now is super common. In fact, when we're talking about the next generation of Wi-Fi security, the researcher I was speaking with is like, oh yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. But all of these routers that are offering it are also going to offer the old style of encryption too. Right. So if you're a hacker and you want to break into the Wi-Fi, it's way easier to just do a downgrade attack and just, pretend to be an older phone that doesn't support this yet. force the system to start using a less secure method of encryption and then attack that. So, all the security and all this stuff is great, but there's lots of ways that attackers can pretend to be an old system that doesn't support the newest, best encryption. And then suddenly you're back to square one, because we need to be able, you can't imagine how angry business people would be if their old computer can't just be put into the network when it needs to be. Because suddenly it's no longer able to be supported. So the backwards compatibility, the convenience is definitely the source of a lot of what's possible that we're doing right now.
Yeah, I'd be really upset if they wouldn't let my Windows Millennium Edition computer onto the network. The pinnacle of operating systems was Windows Millennium Edition. So we got to support the old protocol so I can get on with that, because the heck with this Windows 10 malarkey,
right?
Honestly.
Right? No, you got to stick with something that works. There's no need to improve on something that's already working, of course. By the way, thank you to everyone who's leaving comments and stuff in the chat. David and Ivan and everyone else. It's very nice to have all of you on the chat today. So feel free to ask questions about ransomware as we go, because we are live and we're answering them today. So.
Yeah. Cool. So in this case, now that I have all of my my service tickets collected here, what I want to do is I want to target my efforts. Again, I want to go for those domain admins. I want to go right to the top here. So again, very basic query. Oh, started on me already. But what I basically told it to do is give me a list of accounts that had service principal names that were also admin. So I have backup service, IT admin, and a proxy account. I went a little bit too far, or I hit an extra enter maybe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I think this is John the Ripper actually running the background, but I'm going to crack these offline. And as I mentioned, because of the downgrade attack that we basically did, we're going to see if we can access the ticket. It's encrypted with NTLM of the password, and we're going to see what happens. Basically, when the ticket opens, we know we've guessed the right password. So here we go. The password for backup service is, this is a good one, password 1 with an A though. So it's very complex.
Yeah.
It's very complex. This is a good one.
They almost got us.
This is, all of you out there in internet world, this is your grandma's password. Just, I want to let you know that. Or grandpa, or whoever's, mom, dad, I don't know. There's a good chance that somebody that has this password.
Yeah.
If we could go to Las Vegas, I'd put money on that one.
At DEF CON, a lot of people do.
Yeah. So here we go. So now we have a password for what I know is a domain admin in this case. And this was done offline. So we cracked this offline. So we weren't making a lot of noise there, which is nice. So trying to go a little bit under the radar. But now we can do all sorts of tricky things here. So I'm going to, ticket harvesting is complete. Cool. What I want to do now is I want to leverage that admin password to be able to look at not only what's out there. So I'm going to access my file server, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to impersonate backup service to go out there and find all of that data. So in the best case scenario, this organization is running in least privilege. Everyone's locked down to just kind of business need to know, only the places that this user account that I'm on, or this machine that I'm on, has access to. So maybe that has some juicy stuff. Maybe that doesn't have some juicy stuff, but I'm after the good stuff, and domain admins can get access to pretty much everything here. So,
we did have one question.
Yes.
That was, how did you use John the Ripper and Mimikatz in the same interface, or did you just switch tools?
So they were both part of the script. So they were called independently as part of a larger script that we're running.
Cool.
So it's a little bit of a trick. We created a big script, and there are little smaller subscripts in here that are calling the different tools to interact on the different parts of it. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So here we go. In this case, so we use our backup service. We use that password that we cracked offline to find some good stuff. Looks like we have some confidential documents, some stuff in the finance folder that we found. Maybe I don't know who this user is. I think I'm logged in as maybe an engineer or somebody. So I might not have had access to this normally, but the backup service would, because backup service kind of has access to a lot of stuff. Although kind of weird that it's running as an admin account too. Doesn't probably shouldn't be configured that way.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be configured that way. So a little bit of a mistake, but that's not uncommon. You think, you're configuring the new the backup service. You want to make sure that it's connecting to everything. Oh, maybe you have to troubleshoot. Throw it in the admins group. Go about your business. And then, oops, I forgot about it. Never took it back out. And here we are. So found this stuff. Let's go ahead and download it. So downloading it to the machine off of that. And what I'm going to do is create an encrypted zip right away. So here we go. 40%, 50%. Downloaded, creating the zip file. Okay, cool. So there we go. So now I've downloaded the files and put them into this private.zip, and I've encrypted it. That's all part of the script too. It's automatically encrypting it to hide any of the data here from prying eyes. So anybody doing network scanning or anything like that, or gateway scanning, looking for pattern matching in the bits and bytes going out of the network. But it's encrypted now, so it's all
looks random.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
Yep. So going to keep on going here. So file crawl is complete. Great. I have what I need. So part of this is not just about the ransomware that we'll get to, but it's also the fear of people disclosing or exposing sensitive corporate information on the internet. So I also want to steal this information. So I'm going to go ahead and send it out to the internet now. And part of the script, what it's doing right now is basically programmatically opening an HTML. I believe it's a post in the background. So all I'm doing is posting this information to a website that I control and catching it on the other side.
Nice.
I can do this in a couple different ways. So this just looks like web traffic right now. Pretty basic stuff. Just going out to the internet. I could do this through a DNS tunnel. If I wanted to, I could break this down to little tiny bits, put those on the front of my DNS query and send it out to a random internet DNS server that I control outside of the organization.
Very low and slow, especially if you're trying to export like a gigabyte or something. Like it's gonna take a long time.
Right.
Hopefully you're not stealing movies.
Right. So this will go a little bit faster, but I got some pretty good stuff here. So getting it out. So now in this case, as the attacker, I will have that sensitive data under my control. So when I go ahead and it's a bit of a double whammy now for the ransomware. Not only will I encrypt the stuff on the file server in a minute here, but I also have another copy of that in my possession that I could, let's just call it what it is, blackmail the organization to say, hey, if you don't pay up to get your data back here, I'm also going to release it or release bits and pieces of it at this point.
So I'm not an expert on this, but I recall that this was something that was very common, like kind of before ransomware, where like businesses would just kind of like have their data accessed and then be blackmailed, especially in like countries like Japan, where there's organized crime that like does stuff like this. And like that was like its whole other revenue model, where people wouldn't encrypt the data, they would steal the data, sift through it, find stuff that was embarrassing, and find ways of making money. But nowadays, like most ransomware doesn't do that. It doesn't try to steal the data because the people don't care. They know for a fact that the data is worth more to you than it is to them. So by just basically stealing access to the data, it really is all they're doing. They're not actually stealing the data, just the ability to access it. But this is really going a step above and beyond, where maybe there is something really juicy here, or maybe this is like nation state stuff where like not only do we want to encrypt it, we also want to steal it because there could be sensitive information. That's all kind of what we're doing in the pre-step, where we're making sure we have a copy of the viable data before we go about trashing it.
Yeah, absolutely. If, and this is also just to kind of get around that, well, I have great backups. It's no big deal. I can restore it and get back running. You also don't want your, secret corporate business plans or mergers and acquisitions or that next product release or, your company payroll or whatever else here, we're in the hospital. If you have patient records, you can't have that getting out. So this is, again, another extortion model here that pay up to get your data back, but also, wink, wink, we're not going to release it on you here too.
Yeah.
So here we go. Uploaded it to our non-files site, and we have our little link. So, we could copy it, download it later, whatnot. So let's keep going on here. Okay, so here's the main event. Here's the main show. Press enter to execute the Maze ransomware.
Yeah, so
Are you ready for this?
as of yet, we haven't done any ransomware. All we've been doing is creepy computer guy stuff. We've been moving around the network, we've been looking at stuff, we've been downloading stuff, encrypting something to send to ourselves, but we haven't actually done any damage to the system. We're just touching it in ways that it probably doesn't like and wasn't really designed, necessarily for an outsider to be able to do. But we're about to take a much bigger step forward, and now we're going to start wrecking stuff. So,
yeah,
let's do it.
Here we go. Oh, it's pretty scary. That means business.
Yeah. If you see that, if you see that on your screen, it's not. Oh,
there we go. So here's since I'm on the end user machine being affected right now, I'm going to get the pop up here. Like I said, I'm on the end user machine. This is what they would see in this case. So hey, what happened to your files? Here's the way to pay. You got to go. You got to get your Tor browser because you got to anonymize it and hide your. Well, the attackers have to hide where they're at because don't want to be tracked down. Kind of defeats the purpose, right? But here's the steps to pay. Wait a minute.
Oh no.
And I'm dead. So what happened and what's running in the background is we were actually monitoring this with our system, and we detected the ransomware in progress there and actually shut down the machine there. So we had defenses actually watching that end user's machine and watching the file servers. Or we were monitoring the activity on the files from the end user machine, and we detected that ransomware-like behavior, so we shut the machine down. So just that quick, really, to triage that.
So we have one question from the chat. Since this is a noisy attack, will the attacker have any opportunity to cover their tracks after? I would say that if the user that they manage to get to open, whatever exploit has access to like everything, like log files and stuff like that, then it's going to be really hard to figure out what happened if all your log files are encrypted too.
Yeah, this was designed to be a little bit more noisy. Also, you could go like real low and slow with a lot of this stuff. But ransomware is designed to be noisy anyway. You can't get a ransom. You can't get somebody to pay up if they don't know that their stuff has been encrypted. So
yeah. And one thing you mentioned I wanted to elaborate on is when one of these ransomware messages pops up, it asks you to download the Tor browser as like one of the first steps. And the reason for that is, as you mentioned, these people want to hide where they are. So typically they'll be hosting like a site on the dark net where you'll have to connect to Tor in order to go to this website because it's not available on the regular internet. And this is, because a lot of law enforcement agencies have no idea what this is. They might not be trained to even like be able to go there. So it takes a little bit more specialized knowledge to even look at a website, analyze it, try to figure out where someone is accessing it or creating it from. It just creates a whole different type of skill set that's necessary to analyze this. So it's kind of why a lot of people will use this as a go-to. And of course, like if a hosting provider were to get wind that you're using, it for ransomware, you would get shut down. This is the way to provide some operational resiliency to their ability to receive money and all that.
So that is it. I mean, basically, we executed it. In this case, we had controls in place to catch some of this. In this portion of the demo, we're only looking at the kind of attacker part and the hacking part. Hello, Kitty.
Oh, hi. There we go. Nice.
That was such a good demonstration. The cat had to come over and see. You better watch out. I think that if the cat learned anything, your machine's going to be encrypted, and it's going to demand more treats to unlock your streaming ability.
Fortunately, this cat is a jock. He's huge. He only cares about running around and doing cat stuff. He's not very curious. So I think we're okay on this one.
we survived unscathed. But I did want to give a shout out and a plug to our security research team here at Varonis, who came up with this great scenario, put it all together for us, built the environment in the labs. And if anybody out there wants to see the other side, the defense side, the investigation side, we do have other sessions that will go into that in depth. So you'll see this attack again, but they'll flip to the other side and show what someone in the SOC or a threat responder or someone on the CISO's team would do when this happens, the alerts that would trigger, how to dig in, see exactly what was affected, when, how, and trace this entire chain of events from that initial kind of connection and infiltration attempt all the way up to the ransomware attempt and what it looks like at every single step. So that's something that we offer. I'll plug Varonis. So if you look at Varonis, we have webinars, and this is one of our big game ransomware attack labs. So we have great security researchers that host and run through this that can get really in depth with it. So a lot of great guys that do this. If anybody out there wants to learn and see what the attack or the defense side of this attack looks like.
Yeah, I have to say, this was so fast. It was over in the blink of an eye. Like both the defense and the attack portion happened incredibly quickly. And while we were kind of stepping through what an attacker would do to gain an elevated position from which to launch like a really devastating ransomware attack, while also having the data to maybe do some blackmailing. Looking at this from the defender side is really cool. Because companies get hit with this stuff all the time, and some have the proper protections in place where they're able to shut it down really quickly, and some of them, really don't, and are forced to just start from a position of no knowledge before really understanding what happened. So it's really interesting to see, just from the side of the victim, how quickly this happened and how little information someone might have if they didn't have the ability to, really have any protections in place or understand how quickly a ransomware attack really happens. Because I expected it to kind of like chug along or whatever, but as soon as you get hit with that screen, it means that your files are, if not already encrypted, being encrypted very rapidly.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly it. And it all depends on the type of ransomware and the attacker and kind of what they're after, what they're doing. You can run through some of these other steps very low and slow before the initial detonation. You could really live in the environment for a long time before it gets to the ransomware part. Get the data out slowly, move around laterally. But we kind of hit them hard and hit them fast with this. No mercy. Just grab what we want, destroyed it.
Yeah, so we have another question. Is the defense video on this attack available to watch? It sounds very informative.
So we do live webinars for this. I think a couple times a week we have a couple different attack scenarios that you can see someone live going through this and going through the defense. It wouldn't be on YouTube; it would be on Varonis in our I believe webinar section, if I'm remembering correctly. If any Varonis people are watching the stream, please chime in and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I believe this is called the Big Game Ransomware. Yeah. So if you want to check it out, the Big Game Ransomware webinar for that's going to be in the Varonis webinar events, like it's going to be great. You're going to get to see more of the defense side. You'll see how a really big company would detect and respond to an incident like this. So I understand that it's from the attacker side, it's over so quickly, but from the defender side, really the work just begins in that 1 second. So learning about how companies stop this, about how they detect it, what kind of behavior might trigger a defense, and also what kind of practices can cause a particularly devastating ransomware attack. We talked about some of those things today, and I think we're probably good on your screen, right? We should switch back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, going into some of the things that can create an environment that are particularly ripe for a ransomware attack, there's so many levels on, how you can get caught with this. It can be not abiding by least privilege. So, the lowest secretary of the company has access to absolutely everything for no reason. It can be, just having someone on the upper end of the organization having a ton of access because they feel like they need it, even though they don't really need it. And then if that one person opens an email, they become a huge target because, their one account can encrypt anything in the entire organization. There's lots of people, in businesses that feel uncomfortable if they don't have their hands into everything. This is a very common thing as a business owner, but it's also a ripe way of setting up a system so that one privileged user can take down the whole thing in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges too. I think a lot of organizations face is it's hard to get a handle on what that least privilege means. You think, and I've worked in the corporate world for basically my whole career at this point, but as a hiring manager, something like that, you hire a new guy or new gal, come in. Well, what do we give them access to? Well, here's their role. So they probably have some predefined templates, but Judy and accounting or whatever, this is a new accounting person. So let's just clone their role. They've been here for 20 years before. Now the new person might have access to a whole bunch of other stuff from all the different projects and programs that, Judy and accounting worked on for years. And now, new person comes in, has all of that access, and having a good IAM process certainly helps with this. having good kind of role assignment, but it's really common to get into this. And even, I'll shout out myself because I've been with Varonis for 10 years now, and I've had a bunch of different roles. And I think that's pertinent because I started off as an inside engineer, as an outside engineer, now in marketing. So I've moved from different departments and have different roles and responsibilities. I've worked with different teams. And we all kind of collaborate and coordinate on different stuff. So over the years, had it not been managed, of course, we have been managing it because it's kind of what we do. But it's really easy to move and transition roles and just get things added but never taken away.
Yeah.
So putting that process in place for least privilege becomes really important to avoid the lowest hanging fruit. Our attack here, again, was very targeted, knew it wanted to go after an elevated account. But in your example, and maybe the example at the hospital in Germany, I'm not sure, but any old person clicks, that got that indiscriminate ransomware thing could potentially put the business at risk. And I don't want to shame or fault anybody. These things they're getting good. They're getting better. And we're all in such a rush. We're all still working from home. So we don't have some of that face-to-face conversation. And, there's always a lot going on, juggling 10 different things at home. Even the best of people might slip up and click that enable plugin, or it might look like it comes from a legitimate, reputable person. Your boss sends you an email, hey, we got to get this done, or the CEO or the CFO says, hey, we got to take a look at this invoice for me. You're not going to not click on the CFO's email. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those things I also teach people about is like the trust other people put in you is a huge. They're like people like, oh, someone's going to get in my email. I don't care. It's like, well,
Right.
What about every person that trusts you? If they were to get an email from you, would they open it? Like that's a huge thing that a lot of people don't think about when they don't secure their stuff. You can have an associate or something who's like not very secure with their stuff, and if you get an email from them,
Right.
it could be because their account was breached. There was nothing interesting in it, but they found out the attackers found out that person knows a bunch of important people, and that's just as bad. And so we have another question. How can I access to PC with the port SSL filtered by the domain server? All right, what I'm about to tell you is illegal, and I'm not a network engineer. I would personally breach the domain server with a brute force attack, take control, and then give myself access. There you go. Thank you for the question. And then we also have a comment, would love to see a live stream on SQL injection soon. Yeah, David, sounds like a good idea. Heck yeah. And also thank you to the Varonis LinkedIn account for posting the webinar link for the Maze ransomware attack simulation. I reposted the link, so everybody in the chat should have access to it. So if you want to check out the defensive side, it's really cool. And you'll get to see, in that 1 second of damage, the frantic amount of work that has to go into the defender side. But it is really cool seeing how these pieces work, because a lot of companies that are set up to deal with these attacks have great ways of dealing with it. And it's really not as bad as you might expect, although it is quite dramatic.
Yeah, you can never underestimate the panic, the fear that happens when something like this pops off. It's that I've been through my career a couple different instances where things have gone badly, and there's always that war room meeting. What's happening? We got to figure this out. Before you take action, and that's if you have something that can tell you something goes wrong. When you have machines or things dropping off the network and you don't know why, that's precious. Minutes that the attackers are running over you in your environment. So I don't miss that stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question is, what kind of programs to avoid on your PC? I'm going to say pirated video games, and also doc files that ask you to open macros. Those would be my top 2 programs to avoid on your PC. Killian, what about you?
That's a pretty solid one. I'm super paranoid. Even I hate downloading any type of executable.
Yeah.
For anything unless I'm really sure about the company. I do some like photo editing work, and I just got a new piece of software, and I did a ton of research. Like, is this company reputable? Do websites that I read and know about photography talk about this product? What do the reviews say? And then only then I'm like, it still gave me kind of a pit in my stomach doing it, but it's okay so far as I know. But if you can use something like, if you're a gamer, Steam or what's the other one? Origin or something like that helps you. Or I mean, heck, Microsoft even has their store for some of the trusted stuff. Yeah, and then movie and video files, you can hide things in there too sometimes if you're using, depending on what program you're using to play it. So
sneaky. So I would say, like, from what I've heard, the most common way that malicious software, either nation state stuff where they just want to spy on you, or criminals who are just trying to ransomware people, is from back alley sources of data. So like a movie you've really been wanting to watch, you download rather than stream from like a torrent site. Like, these are the ways that like lots of people's computers get infected, because no one's going to be dropping Titanic into Ghidra and trying to figure out like if there's something weird in there. So be careful, especially when downloading stuff from torrent sites. If you're one of those people, terrible people. I would never. And if you are going to be installing software, if there's a hash available, check to make sure that the hash hasn't been changed, because a lot of times there have been attacks where there's a popular type of software, maybe it's open source software a lot of people use, and then the update website gets compromised and it drops a version that's been modified. Those sorts of things are something to look out for. But aside from that, just try not to download any like games off of like a Chinese torrent site that's like obviously been ripped and repackaged, and you'll probably be able to steer away from ransomware, at least for the foreseeable future. And
the other thing too is it's not just necessarily about downloading executing software. That's a really easy way in, but the attackers have gotten pretty tricky about it, hiding macros and different things like that, or executable and coding it with base64 and hiding in an ad that gets rendered on your browser. And if there's something in your browser that will execute it, or if it's not isolated, you could also face situations like that. And it's not just the shady sites. Sometimes like those, the ad providers, Google and whatnot, have done a good job about trying to filter it out, but it's still possible that you could get a malicious ad on a reputable website too. So it's just exercising caution, with where you browse. Use whatever controls you can on your machine to isolate the browser, and you'll do okay.
Yeah. My final piece of advice is if something just looks up like straight up sketchy, you can always upload it to VirusTotal. If it's not very sophisticated malware, it'll probably be detected. Although for anything that's like the least bit obfuscated, it's really easy to get around this stuff. So if you're just not feeling good about something, you feel like someone's throwing like low level ransomware or malware your way, VirusTotal may be able to detect it. But if it's been obfuscated at all, then it's not. A VirusTotal scan is not the same thing as a virus scan. That should be clear. It's just a first pass. It doesn't tell you if there's something hidden in there that's malicious. So just don't get a false sense of security. I know some people that are like not super technical will just upload everything to VirusTotal. It's like, it is not a replacement for an antivirus. Right. So yeah. Okay, I think that's all the time we have for today. I want to also thank everyone who joined us in the chat today. Thank you to Dwayne and Ivan and David and everybody else who was asking questions that has less normal screen names. I can't say the Russian one that starts with a B. But yeah, everybody else, thank you so much for asking questions today. It's really great doing a live presentation. Not for our production team, it's horrible for us, but for just being on the stream, it's really great hearing everyone's feedback. If you have ideas for future shows, please let us know. Like the injection one that was recommended, I think would be a really fun one to do. So maybe we'll do one on SQL injection. But yeah, you can hit me up on Twitter at Kody Kinsey. Killian is also does some of our webinars here. So if you like this, if you want to check out some more, check out the Varonis web events, particularly the Maze ransomware one, to see more of Killian. And yeah, I think that's all we got today. Thanks.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks, Kody.